Before we start this bonus episode, a word about our sponsors, St Mary's University Twickenham. We're incredibly proud to be working with St Mary's on this episode, and particularly the suite of football and performance analysis programmes. Fraser and I have worked with St Mary's before, sitting on panels alongside influential voices from the world of football and rugby, and we're delighted to continue that relationship in this podcast. St Mary's have got a demonstrated history of developing industry-leading practitioners in sport and have a rich selection of football and sport-specific programmes at both undergraduate and postgraduate level. The team at St Mary's harness a real passion for developing the next generation of coaches and support staff, and Fraser and I have seen up close that very passion. St Mary's were particularly keen to support this episode with Natasha Dowie, who's a trailblazer in the women's game, someone who has pushed herself across the world and become more than just a football player. The university are committed to enhancing the women's game and utilise the St Mary's FA Women's High Performance Football Centre to support and drive the number of qualified female coaches. We're incredibly grateful for their support on this episode, and we look forward to working with them more in the future. If you're interested in studying at St Mary's, please contact the Programme Director Tom Hounsell by email, tom.hounsell@stmarys.ac.uk. You can find them on Twitter on @StMarysPFC, and we've shared some links in the description to this podcast and on our social media so you can read more about what the university has to offer. And now over to me and Fraser with the latest episode of Football Journeys. Hi, you're listening to Football Journeys, a B5 Consultancy podcast with me, Matt Himsworth, and my colleague Fraser Franks.
Football Journeys is a podcast that ignores the glitz and the glamour of the beautiful game in favour of the pain, the graft and the rejection.
In Series 1, we met Liverpool FC's academy class of 2013-14. There were 10 impressive young men who lived the roller coaster through the famous academy at Kirkby and beyond, but ultimately missed out on their Anfield dream. If you haven't yet listened to that series, then we strongly recommend that you do.
From the boy wonder, dubbed the next Steven Gerrard, to the Spanish lads quickly adapting to English culture and football.
The player told at the age of 21 that he'd have to retire before a donation of a new knee gave him a new lease of life and 15 more years of playing.
And even the dramatic story of Darius Wardren, who tragically spent time at Her Majesty's pleasure, but is now rebuilding his life.
After 10 episodes, we're moving on from this group of lads to tell more and varied stories.
We're going to finish off this series with a few bonus episodes that will take us in a completely different direction.
Our next bonus episode is with Natasha Dowie. Born into a football family, mentored by her dad Bob and inspired by her uncle Ian, she went on to outstrip what any of the male members of her family could achieve. To date, she has scored over 116 goals in England, Australia, the United States, Sweden, Norway and now in Italy with the Rossoneri Giants of AC Milan. During her childhood, as recently as the 1990s, it was difficult to see a pathway to a career in professional football for a girl. But Tash and players like her have beat a path. And though she has perhaps not earned the large sums that some of the generation of female football players can hope to earn in the future, her career has been rich in experiences. Like Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the AC Milan men's team, she's supremely fit and evergreen, and at the age of 32 she still has eyes on adding to her 14 caps for her country, England. She is an inspiration to young footballers, both male and female, and talks to us about life as a wandering footballer, adopting to cultures and languages, the female game's mature approach to same-sex relationships, and her attitude to being more than just a footballer, whilst loving the game as much as when she was a little girl beating the boys she grew up with. I want to start this episode, Tash, by just throwing a statistic at you. It's something from our own research, and no doubt social media will tell us if we've got this one wrong. But we've got David Johnson in 1980, Peter Beardsley in 1992, Natasha Dowie in 2014. The only three football players to score for both Everton and Liverpool in the Merseyside derby. So, I mean, just to give our listeners an idea of the privilege that we have to have you with us. But welcome to the show, Tash.
Thank you.
You're our first women's player, and we very much hope not the last. But just as we do with the lads, we want to take you back to what it was like to be little Tash. Take you back to the early years. You were born in Abu Dhabi, which obviously comes from your dad's job in aviation. You were born in Abu Dhabi, but raised in Hertfordshire. And those that are aware of your background will know that football runs through the blood. your uncle Ian Dowie, obviously very recognisable name in football, and your dad Bob, well, people in Hertfordshire would know, or non-league circles in Hertfordshire would know, a very talented footballer himself. But tell us about those early years. I mean, how much of an influence was it to have two male figures who were so oriented in football?
Yeah, I think for me, having my dad and my uncle who were both involved within the men's game at such a high level definitely helped me. My dad had two daughters and I was the eldest. So I think he kind of took me under his wing as his little tomboy and got a football in my hand, as soon as I was born. And when I was younger, the opportunity to play football really wasn't an opportunity. There was none for us girls, unfortunately. In primary school, I was the only girl that was playing, and I wasn't allowed to play with the boys. And then even going into secondary school as well, I remember a lot of tournaments where I was playing with the boys and we'd make the final, and then the other team, would refuse to play against me because I was a girl. So things like that was tough. So my dad and a couple of my friends that really wanted to have a kickabout, we just went to a local field in Harpenden where I grew up, and my dad would just have a kickabout with two or three of my friends. And really from there, kind of my love for the game grew. And I think I would just always remember having a football in my hand. I'd go to school, play football, I'd come home, play football. Mum and dad would call me in for dinner, and then I'd be out again kicking a football around. So it was tough. And then I think Harpenden Colts, there was teams from where I grew up, and I kind of got involved playing at a younger age at Harpenden Colts. And then really my journey then going to Watford is where it really started getting a lot more serious for me.
Well, look, just to dig in that a little bit. So you and Fraser are of a similar age, and so you would have had similar starts in life. Football mad, all you want to do is play football. But we're not talking so long ago. We're talking mid-90s to late 90s. And it doesn't sound like a long time ago, but actually it seems an age away. Was it difficult for your dad? I mean, Bob's he was a traditional football man. He expected to have a son at some stage, and the son was going to play football. I mean, were you mentioned being a tomboy. How difficult was it made for you during those times?
Yeah, as a kid, I never felt that it was difficult. And I think my dad as well never made me feel as if, he found it hard and he found it difficult. I just loved playing the game. And I think I was really lucky with regards to my dad's and my mum's commitment to allowing me to play the game. And I think having my dad and my uncle who were brought up with football their whole life definitely helped that situation, because they took me to football every weekend. Saturdays and Sundays, that whole weekend was just taken up with me and my sister playing football. My sister even had a kickabout with me as well. As she grew up, then her passion for the game, definitely faded. But we were both playing football when we were younger. She was a centre half and I was a striker. But I just remember that, my dad would just be willing to take me anywhere I needed to go to play football. And he would be at every single game. And that's been throughout my whole career, even today now. He's flown out to Australia to watch me play. He's been to Italy. Every single country I played in, my dad's been there in the stands. And I think that just shows, how much me making football and becoming a professional football player, he was a massive part of that. And he always says to me now how proud he is.
We caught up with Tash's dad, Bob, and it was absolutely clear that he was beaming with pride for the achievements of his daughter.
She was a very athletic kid. I remember she could, when you had the old school sports and you had the very varied school sports, like throw the cricket ball, do the long jump, do the high jump. She was always as good as all of the boys. That's always was super balanced as an athlete. She was balanced as a swimmer, as a thrower. She could do the javelin. She had some choices to make early on because they wanted her to be a pentathlete. They wanted her to go towards that multi-sport thing. She sort of said to me one day, Dad, I love playing football with you. Love coming to watch your team. Why can't we start a girls' team? So I was manager, I think, of Aylesbury United at the time, Harrow Borough or Aylesbury United. I was still playing. I was a player coach. And, the non-league thing takes up a lot of your time. So every Saturday morning, we set up a coaching session with a team. And we started our own girls' team. We entered the Watford St Albans League. And we were Harpenden Colts. We did it under the boys' team, but we started the girls. But, it was so clear. We had a very good team. But she was like, when I watched her play in the league, it was quite clear that she was like going to be a good player. One of my favourite memories was taking her to the Marriott at Slough to drop her off for her first England camp. And I'll get a bit teary now on this because, you know, having been a footballer, I broke my leg fairly early, and, you know, my brother had a great career. I probably would have had a better career if I hadn't broke my leg badly. But I had a good career, you know, all non-league stuff. But I remember going into the room and seeing her kit laid out on the bed. And I just thought to myself, you know, as a boy and having dreamt of being a footballer, my brother being an international, I thought, this is like incredible that my daughter's an international footballer. And she did great. I am so proud of her, I can't speak, because what Tata's done is Tata's represented England on nearly every continent in great football and been an ambassador for us in the way she trains every day, the way she plays. And, you know, America, Sweden, you know, all over Scandinavia, Italy now, AC Milan. She's plied her trade everywhere with no help from anybody, you know, and done absolutely and been a winner everywhere she's been. So I'm super, super proud of her.
My uncle Ian, I still speak to him, and he just said that I've by far had the best career in the family. And obviously he had an incredible career, but he said the amount that I've travelled and what I've achieved in my career is just something special.
Well, look, you've from our estimations, and actually you can't rely on Wikipedia, you got 130 career goals, Uncle Ian 116. So we can
okay, that's good to know.
We spoke beforehand, and I remember telling you that my earliest memories in football I'm from a South London sort of council estate, and we had Farrah Williams on our estate, who was joined in with all the boys and was better than all the boys at her age. Are your first sort of memories of playing football on the street or in school and organised football, was that as one of the only girls in the team, or was that with other girls?
Yeah, only girl, for sure. I just remember kicking the ball around on my own in the streets, and, you know, getting my dad to come and kick about with me as well. But a lot of the time he was working, so I'd be on my own. And I just remember my mum always shouting at me for, you know, either smashing the windows in or ruining the plants, and, you know, always, you know, having a little moan at me. But and then as I got older, still being the only girl in the boys teams. And it was probably only when I was maybe 13, 14, starting playing for Harpenden and Colts and an actual girls team. And then I progressed into a ladies team at Watford when I was about 15 years old.
And what was the differences that you found going from a boys 13-year-olds team to a girls 14-year-olds team? Do you feel like that helped your development?
I actually kind of wish I played with boys longer. I see the girls now from a young age training with boys, and I think it's great. You know, and I think the way that girls are respected now as well. Back when I was younger, the boys wouldn't pass to me, so you wouldn't even touch the ball. Whereas now I think there's a lot more respect between boys and girls playing football together. But I wish I had that development of playing with boys and playing in boys' teams. It was more a case of I would just have a kick about with boys when I was younger. And then when I made the step up into the women's team at 15, I definitely remember just physicality wise that there was a big change, because I was playing with, you know, some of the women were 27, 28, you know, and I was 15 years old. So there was a big difference with regards to the physicality. But I've always been quite a strong player, and I think that's definitely my strength as a player now. But it's funny, when you're younger, you just don't think. You know, I haven't got the best memory anyway, but all I remember is just loving playing the game. You know, I never really thought too much. I just wanted to play, and I just love winning. I love scoring goals. And really, it's only when I started getting involved with England, 17, 18, 19 years old, that I really then started, you know, switching more my mind onto like living the more professional lifestyle, how I'm meant to live and eat and perform. Whereas when I was younger, I just wanted to play with anyone who would want to have a kick about with me.
Well, that brings to quite an interesting point of what it's like to be a young girl with a real talent for football as compared to a boy. So your dad, Bob, was a really talented footballer. And I know from previous conversations that I think even Uncle Ian would accept this, that he may have even been the more talented of the two at one stage, but an injury meant that he didn't progress and Uncle Ian did. He went on to represent Northern Ireland, your granddad's country. He's got a lot of goals, not as many as you, as we said. Played for the likes of West Ham, Crystal Palace. So therefore, you've got, the male figures in your family seeing a path for a male footballer. Did you see a path for yourself when you were kicking the ball around at 10, 11, 12? Did you think when you were a kid you might be a professional football player?
Definitely not. You always have the dream of wanting to play professionally, of course. But when I was younger, no. I looked up to the likes of, I used to love watching Thierry Henry play at Arsenal. And, my dad and my uncle were my idols. My uncle was playing professionally and then managed in the Premier League. And they're the type of people I looked up to. And obviously my mum as well. I always feel bad because I never bring my mum into it. But, I looked up to them as more of my idols. And, then the older I got, you had the likes of, the US women's national team, the likes of Mia Hamm, Abby Wambach. And then that's when you started seeing these figures and you kind of had these female football players that you maybe could aspire to be like. But never once when I was younger did I ever think I could, make a living out of playing football. And even when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, I remember my first professional contract at Liverpool, I was earning £9,000 and that was when I was 25. So it's crazy how quick the game has developed, but definitely when I was younger, no idea of where I'd be right now.
Look, thank God it has. You're at Watford, so this is your local club effectively.
Yeah.
You're playing women's football at the age of 15, 16, but you quickly moved to a couple of London clubs. You spent some time at Fulham. You then move on to Charlton. I think I'm right in saying that Ian was the men's manager at the time.
Yeah.
Was that the connection? Why? Because South London's a long way away from Harpenden, where you grew up.
No, do you know what? It was funny. I was at Fulham and I wasn't getting a lot of game time under Marianne Spacey. And Keith Bonas touched base with me and just said he would love to bring me to Charlton. Thought I was a great centre forward. Had Eniola Aluko there playing up front, who was, a top England striker at the time. And really, I bit his hand off because Charlton, really, except for Arsenal, were the big team. And I loved my year at Charlton. It was incredible. We made the FA Cup final when I was 18, even though we lost to Arsenal 4-1, but was still an incredible experience for myself to play in the FA Cup final. And yeah, it's crazy how Charlton actually, the men got relegated and they kind of ended up pulling the plug on the women's team. And that's actually, when my uncle was there at the time, unfortunately. So I kind of then had no club. It went from, having a great year at Charlton to then really trying to figure out where I'm going to play next.
Well, that's a really important point. So there you've got the men's team not succeeding on the pitch, getting relegated, but crack on, they carry on. You have a successful season with the women's team and they just decide now we'll pack all this in now.
Yeah.
So that level of uncertainty that comes in during that time when the women's game, that must have an impact on you. But you yourself were performing pretty well. And my understanding is you had two offers on the table, which was Everton and Arsenal. Mm-hmm. Now you are from Harpenden in Hertfordshire. Arsenal won the league something like 8 years on the trot at that point. Vic Akers is the manager. They're winning everything. It's a 15-minute drive from your home. So naturally, you chose Everton.
Yeah. It was a crazy decision. I remember meeting Vic Akers and him showing me around all the fancy facilities at Arsenal in London Colney, and it was incredible. It was breathtaking. I could have been living at home, like you said, 15-minute drive, winning everything, probably getting golden boot every year. But there was just something about going to a club and being an underdog, and I really enjoyed working under Mo Marley at England under-19s level, and I kind of saw Everton and the way they were developing, and they were kind of really becoming like in that second team that were pushing Arsenal for titles, for cup challenges. And yeah, so I made the crazy decision to actually choose Everton for less money, 3.5-hour drive up the M1. So like sometimes 7 hours I was traveling. I remember I'd meet Emily Westwood at Birmingham. We would drive up together, train when all the academy boys were finished at Finch Farm. So I think we used to get onto the training pitch at 8:30 at night, finish around 10 p.m. And then we'd get home, around 1, 2 a.m. and I'd have school. And so it was crazy. And luckily for me, Mo Marley said that I could train with the team 2 or 3 times a week. And then the other couple of days I would train at Barnet with Tracy Kevins, who was the assistant under-19s England manager. So her and Mo were happy with that kind of understanding. And then I used to just go and play games at the weekend for Everton. Yeah, it was a lot of travelling and it was a big commitment. And, I was thankful to have Emily Westwood so I could share that part of the journey with her. And obviously I had my dad as well, where he would help me out for game days, just so, you know, because traveling on a game isn't great anyway. You know, it's not good for your legs and you definitely feel tired. And I definitely felt that. I'm going to be honest, you know, we used to drive 3.5 hours up to the game, on the game. And I remember getting out of the car and you're stiff and you feel lethargic, and, you know, it's not great preparation. So it was tough. It was a big commitment. And I did that probably for the first couple of years playing at Everton, the first 2 or 3 years. And then I ended up actually meeting my wife, my wife now there. So I ended up actually moving to Liverpool to live, which made the travel a lot easier.
You're playing at a high level. You're being expected to play across the country. You're sort of operating on a sort of almost a Sunday league budget. I mean, you're getting petrol money.
Yeah, I think we were getting about £250 a week, from what I remember, £200 a week. So to be honest, with the petrol and how much I was traveling, I was probably sometimes paying to play. So yeah, it's crazy to think that I was playing for England at the time at senior level. We were making FA Cup finals, winning FA Cups, winning League Cups. And yeah, pretty much. I remember when I left Everton to sign for Liverpool, I think they were offering me about £250 a week. That was like their kind of offer to try and keep me. So yeah, not great money.
Was that the big frustration at the time when you are? I know there's different things like TV rights in it, but when you are seeing men's teams, you know, I had a season in the Conference South, so I was a part-time footballer for a year. I think I was probably getting £300 a week.
Yeah. And
you're the elite level of women's. Yeah. Is that where some of the frustration comes in? I know that a lot's changing and so much has happened since then. Was that a frustration that you thought of at the time, or did it not really cross your mind?
I'm going to be completely honest and say it never crossed my mind. And that people can say I'm lying or just trying to say the right things, but I've never been the type of player that's played for money. And maybe it's because I've been very fortunate that my family have always supported me, and a lot of other people haven't had maybe as much support from their family as what I have. Maybe if I didn't have that support system from my family and I was really struggling for money, then maybe that would have been more of a frustration for me. But I'm going to be openly honest and say that that's never had to be something that I've had to worry about. So for me, then it was more a case of I wanted to play football somewhere that I was happy. That's why I didn't go to Arsenal for more money, because in my heart, going to Everton felt right. You know, and every single move I've made in my career has always been, the first question has been, you know, who are the players you're signing? It's never been about the money for me. And, you know, obviously I need to be able to survive and make a living. And I've obviously, like I said, I've got a wife and other things that I need to support and make sure that we can live and eat and put food on the table. But for me, the most important thing is the players that I'm playing with, the environment I'm playing with. Will it make me a better player, and will I be happy?
You mentioned Becky, and I just want to ask you a little bit about this. In the men's game, we haven't had an openly gay player, or at least openly gay whilst playing. Mm-hmm. The women's game is obviously streets ahead in that respect. Without wishing to delve too much, because you know it's your private life and you share what you want to with us in this podcast. But how easy has it been being a gay woman in football? And actually, how easy is it to be a gay woman?
Yeah, I think it's funny because if you were to ask the question to Becky, she's 15 years older than me, and it was definitely harder for her. You know, she is a lot more private than me. I'm a little bit more open, and my family, in the way that we share a lot of things. Her family wasn't as open about that kind of thing. And I think it's just generation on generation. But I think for me, I found it very difficult at the start accepting that I was gay. And especially because my dad obviously was involved in men's football, and he was a real macho man. And, you know, being around the men's game, I was worried about what he would think. And so for many years, I just kind of denied it and, you know, pretended to date guys just to kind of like fit in and, you know, kind of not upset him. And I then remember when obviously I met Becky and realised in my eyes that she was the one that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I remember sitting down with him, and he could tell I was lying to him when he kept asking me if I was gay, and I obviously denied it. And I just remember him looking at me and saying, "Tash, look, you're actually upsetting me more that you're lying to me. like, just be honest. Like, you're my daughter. I don't want you to have to lie to me. And I just remember breaking down, crying, and just saying, yes, like, I obviously am gay, and, you know, I've met Becky and I want to be able to introduce her to you all and her to be part of our family. And he definitely, my dad's great now. My mum's always been great. My mum asked me when I was 11 years old whether I was gay. So I think she had an idea when I was younger. And my sister and me always struggled, and we used to argue a lot about that. That was a tough kind of relationship when we were younger, because my sister was a real girly girl, you know, dated the boys. But now everyone's great. My nan and granddad, everyone had like brought Becky into the family. My dad at the time thought maybe it was a phase, and, you know, I would kind of grow out of it, as he said. And I think now, after obviously us being together for 12 years and married for 5, I think he kind of realizes that, you know, she is the one for me. And
Bob's version of those times is very, very similar. And he tells a lovely story about the day of the wedding.
Some of my older aunties came over from Northern Ireland to the wedding. And we had this beautiful wedding. We had the house all set up, nice garden, big marquee and everything out the back. My aunties, I was showing them around the house. They were 88, 90 and 92, the 3 ladies, all from my dad's side, all from Northern Ireland, very thick accents. And they went, well, Robert, when are we going to meet the groom then? So I said, that's the groom. And my Auntie Margaret went, oh my God, I didn't think I'd live to go to a gay wedding. I love this. And, you know, they were such proper women that had lived, put up with their husbands all their life, but really run the show. They were very strong women, and they just loved it. And that for me was what family and life's all about. You know, it's a different path. If you've seen Tats and Becks together, I've always said it, you know, it's right. There's nothing wrong with it. It's right. And it was meant to be. And, long may that continue. Not a doubt in my mind, and I'm just super proud of both of them, really, you know.
In general, in the football scene and in the women's world, I think we're very lucky that there are a lot of openly gay players, and it is quite a common thing in women's football, and it's not something that a lot of people are scared to admit or to share. I'm not the type of player that is openly going to go on social media and, you know, shout to the world that I'm gay and that I've got a wife. It's not something that I feel like I need to tell people. However, when I do interviews, Becky's the first person I bring up, because, you know, I'm proud that she's my wife and she's my best friend, and, you know, she's my hero, really. And she's the person that's supporting me now and traveling with me when I'm playing. So, I think I'm really fortunate in that aspect. I think it's great that we've got those role models in the women's game that do come out and make it a little bit more out there and acceptable. But each to their own, and how everyone wants to deal with it. I think, you know, you just got to respect people and how they want to kind of talk about it.
How we spoke about that side of it. How does it, when you then meet Becky, how does that dynamic work within a team? Is it something that's quite common? Is it something that you felt, shall we be doing this, shall we not? Is it a grey area? How does that work? Because it's something that, obviously, we're talking about openly gay footballers in the men's game, and we haven't had any professional footballers in this country that have come out gay while they're playing.
Yeah.
And then you add the team dynamic into that in the women's game. How is that sort of perceived in the women's game?
Yeah, it's actually quite a common thing. I've played in 6 different countries, and in most teams that I've played in, there's always been couples within the team. And I think that's where you've got to give credit to, you know, the women and their professionalism, because in every team I've played in, there's never been any issues. You would walk into the team and you would never know that those 2 people are together, you know, when you're training and when you're in the team environment. You would only know it if then we socialise outside of football, and you obviously get talking, and then they obviously share with you that they are seeing each other. Yeah, I've had the best years of my career being able to be with her and also be playing with her. You know, how many couples can say that they've won the FA Cup together, won the league double at the club they support at Liverpool? You know, it's just a dream come true to be able to share those moments with your best friend. She's following different paths in director of sports, and she's now being able to support me from the sideline and kind of allow me to really make the most of the end of my playing career.
The answer to that might be unique, Tash. You might be the only couple to have won the FA Cup together.
Another one of your stats for the beginning.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. You mentioned Farrah Williams, and obviously Fraser knows her from back in the day. You two were the real rising stars, and that piqued the interest of a sort of ambitious Liverpool ladies, now Liverpool women's team, and that led to you transferring across to Liverpool. I mean, how exciting a time was that? Because Liverpool weren't the only team that were ambitious in women's football at that time. How exciting was it? You've mentioned your wages there. They might not be what the outside world might have hoped that they might be, but they were bringing in established stars from places like Iceland and the States, and you went on and really challenged Arsenal. So tell us a little bit about that time.
Yeah, it was a really exciting time. So Matt Beard, who was the assistant at Charlton under Keith Bonas when I played there when I was 18, he touched base with me and he said, look, Tash, I think it's going to be exciting times at Liverpool. They'd finished bottom of the league the last couple of years, really, didn't look like they were going to be doing much at the club. And he said, look, I've spoke to the owners. They're really investing in the women's team. We're going to kind of go full time. And when he said full time, it'd mean we'd train 5 nights a week. It wouldn't be like we were professional football players. People were still having to work and, balance jobs. But the opportunity to actually train 5 nights a week rather than 2 or 3 nights, which we were at Everton. And then when he started talking about bringing international players over to England, which was very rare, if never had happened in the women's game. And it was just so exciting. And then when he obviously said about the money he was going to be offering me, the massive £9,000 a year, my eyes just lit up. It was great. And the likes of Farrah Williams, like you said, Farrah, I mean, for me, is one of, if not the best players I've ever played with regards to her technical ability, her knowledge of the game. Lucy Bronze came over as well, who nowadays is probably one of the best right backs in the world. So the first 2 years, if not the first year that I was at Liverpool, was something special. I won't ever experience anything like that again. The kind of connection that we all had. And it's almost like just all these nationalities came together and we just hit it off from day one. And it was such an incredible year. It's funny because at the time, I still didn't fully think that I'm going to be able to make really good money from this. I remember Becky was still working for the NHS. She was getting at Liverpool, I think, maybe it's pay as you play. So she was kind of like, if you played, you got paid. Players were still doing that juggling act. I was kind of working, coaching part-time just to kind of make a bit of extra money. Truthfully, I still didn't have that kind of real gut feeling that this is going to go on to massive things. Like, you look where it is now. I never, ever dreamed of the sort of money women football players are earning now. It's just incredible when you hear the rumours. I was in that mindset of when I was a kid, I just wanted to play. And when I got offered the opportunity to train every day, to me, I just wanted to play, regardless of what I was earning. It just excited me, the thought of being able to, one, play for Liverpool, the team that I supported, where my home was, and then to be able to train as much as we were getting offered was just so exciting.
One of the other things it offers you is the opportunity to travel. And you were still at Liverpool when you took your first contract abroad, and that was with Melbourne. I mean, tell us how that came about.
It was crazy. I remember I finished my season with Liverpool, and my agent got an email from Dave Edmondson, who had actually coached Bristol City in the English Women's League, and he was working over in Australia coaching in Melbourne for Melbourne Victory. And I just got an email saying, "Look, we've played half of our season. We're just wondering if you wanted to come over as a guest player, just play 6 games, stay 2 or 3 months in Melbourne, Australia, and basically, come and play for us." But I just thought, why not? I get to play football rather than, sitting at home and waiting until the season starts again at Liverpool. Why wouldn't I want to go and kick a ball around in Australia for 2 or 3 months? So I went over to Australia with Becky, and it was life-changing. Was the football the best? No. Were the facilities the best? No. I didn't have kit given to me. We were training on a cricket pitch at a private school. We were traveling, flying to games on the day of the games, landing, getting our food on a bus, parking up, playing. It wasn't professional, and it still isn't. It's a semi-professional league. But something about the city just completely, and I just fell in love with the place, the people, the lifestyle, the culture in Australia. That's why I played 6 years there and why I ended up being eventually captain of the team. And I've openly admitted that I would love to eventually move and live out in Australia. And there's a lot of people say to me, you know, with regards to not playing for England as much as I would have liked to. Of course, I would have loved to have played for England more than what I have. However, on the flip side, would I have been able to have played in Australia? Probably not, because, you know, it's a 12-game league. I know clubs wouldn't, you know, just let me go and play internationally and then miss 2 or 3 games, because that's a third of the season already gone. So there's definitely pros and cons to everything. But I look at my career and would I want to change anything? No. Yes, of course, like I said, I would have loved to have played in a World Cup at senior level and European Championship and an Olympics. However, going to Australia, going to Sweden, Norway, you know, Italy, America, for me, it's just, I could have never have imagined doing it. I was always one of these players that I thought, just play in England. I didn't want to move abroad because I was scared that if I did, I wouldn't play for my country again. But when I did make that initial move, it's by far the best thing I've ever done. It really is. It's improved me as a player. It's improved me as a person. And, you know, I wouldn't change anything.
You talk about England. So you played, I think, 14 caps for your country, 5 goals, which is not a bad return at all. But you didn't get the opportunities that I think a lot of people around you thought you should have done. And I won't quiz you on that because I'll quiz you at the end about getting back into the England team. I guess it would be fair to call Matt Beard one of your mentors. He left Liverpool. You then had a short spell at Doncaster Bells, which I'll politely call a false start, because I'm more interested in talking about what happens afterwards. So you go to Melbourne for a short loan during your time at Liverpool, and it gives you a massive buzz for Australia and Melbourne, and you go back there, what is it, about 5 separate loans or spells in Melbourne. But what I wanted to move on to is in Boston playing. I mean, women's football is big in America. It's bigger than men's soccer over there. And I'm right in saying that Matt Beard was actually the manager of Boston Breakers when you moved there. So, I mean, talk to us about going to Boston, what the lifestyle was like there, and what women's football in America was like compared to what women's football in England was like.
Yeah, I remember when I was at Liverpool and Beardy actually announced to all of us that he was leaving and going to America. We were all pretty upset just because of what he had done at the club and the respect that we had for him. But it was also such an exciting opportunity for him. And then I never dreamt then that he would then take me over there with him. But it was halfway through the season. And like you said, I had a short spell at Doncaster and things didn't work out there for reasons that obviously probably best not to talk about. But I then got the opportunity to go to America. And, you know, you watch Bend It Like Beckham. And I remember as a kid just thinking, it's the league that you want to go and play in, the NWSL. You know, the best players in the world are playing over there. US women's national team playing in front of 25, 30,000 people at Portland Thorns Stadium. I was so excited about this opportunity and spoke long and hard about it with Becky as well, because I knew that for us to make that move, she would have to really give up her playing career. Which she did for me. And then so we made the move to America. Playing in the league was incredible, you know, and like I said, you played in front of 25, 30,000 people in some stadiums. Playing against some of the best players in the world was a bonus. The fans that we had in Boston were incredible, and I've still got lifelong friends from playing in America. We had great turnouts. Was it the glitz and the glamour that I was expecting? No. I remember we trained at Harvard Stadium. I remember our changing rooms was a little porter cabin, like a tiny little like portable hut that they could move around that we would get squeezed into. I remember we trained on a 4G football pitch and it was so hard. I remember, God, your body would just I'd feel about 80 years old after training on it and playing on it every day. I think that was probably the big thing I noticed in the women's game in America is that the size of it was incredible, the support, the backing. However, some of the teams were run pristinely. The Portland Thorns, for instance, really professional. You know, the main team in Portland had, like I said, every game, it was standard 20,000 fans were there. Whereas, for instance, the likes of your Bostons didn't have really the backing that maybe these big clubs did have. So I think that's why we were always on the wrong end of the table. We really struggled with attracting the US national team players because of really the setup that we had at Boston, the facilities. It wasn't as good. where we lived, I remember we had to travel an hour to training because we weren't living in Boston. We were living outside of Boston because financially it's where they could afford to put us up. Tiny little apartments outside of Boston. So it was a good hour, sometimes over an hour and a half to drive to training there. For me, like I said, it was an incredible experience, but it's not the glitz and the glamour that maybe people think it is.
I think you were due to do a third year, and you're going to have to guide me through the American system here. The uncertainty that came up for you when you were on loan in Melbourne, Boston Breakers decided they'd had enough, and there was a breakup of the team while you were away in Australia. I mean, can you walk us through living that experience and what then happened?
I think this was definitely the craziest time of my career. I was playing in Australia and I heard rumours through emails, through talking to my teammates who I was playing with at Boston, that the owners had a bit of a disagreement and the club was going to fold completely. And there was going to be this dispersal draft where we all kind of went into this draft and every other club in the league could pick the players who they wanted to play in their team. So, yeah, within 2 weeks of the season, we didn't have a team. The players that wanted to enter this draft could put their hand up and say, look, I want to enter. People that didn't then could go and play professionally elsewhere. So I put my hand up and thought, I want to keep playing in America. I'll go into the draft. So the way they kind of did it was it went live. It was on YouTube. There was an order and, I didn't really know how they figured it out. But each team that remained in the league, there would be 8 picks. And then like round 2, 8 picks, round 3, round 4, till basically all the players had been selected. So I'd been speaking to my agent and he was pretty confident that I was going to go basically second pick after Rose Lavelle, who was like the next up and coming US superstar.
She's at Manchester City now, isn't she?
Yes. So I was pretty confident that I was going to find a team. So I remember getting up at 8 a.m. Australia time because of the time difference. My mum was over in Australia visiting me and Becky at the time. And we were sitting, having a cup of tea, sitting around the laptop, ready for the kind of draw going live. And I was pretty relaxed. So I was sitting there. They start the YouTube, the live process. And anyway, the 8 players, first 8 get picked and my name wasn't announced. So I was like, okay, next 8, my name wasn't announced. Kind of a little bit nervous now, but still confident. Next 8 players go and my name wasn't announced. And this is when I start thinking, okay, something's not right here. Like, what's going on? So I try and get on the phone to my agent saying, like, what's happening? Why aren't I getting selected? And he said, I'm trying to find out now, Tash, just bear with me. Even people that had retired were getting picked over myself. And basically, it came down to then clubs were passing on me. Pass, not interested. So I was... me and one other girl, a young rookie from Boston, didn't get selected. So we were the only players. Everyone else had got their new team. So I was obviously in hysterics, crying my eyes out, thinking like, what's just happened? I was embarrassed. I was also sad. I was scared because I didn't really know what I was going to do. This is my career, my livelihood. Spoke to my agent and pretty much from what he had discussed is that a lot of the clubs, with regards to the package and what I was on as an international player and having my own apartment, etc., couldn't afford to take my kind of, my paycheck and my overall package. So that's why I didn't get selected. But it was a scary time because I had nowhere to go. The leagues were starting in a couple of weeks. Most clubs had kind of got their squad sorted, weren't looking for players. And then I remember a few days later getting a message from my agent saying, look, a Swedish team, Linköping, but, they won the league last year. He said they're in Champions League playing Man City in the quarterfinals. They're really keen to bring you. And if I'm being completely honest, was playing in Sweden something that I thought of? No. However, I didn't have much choice. And the thought of playing Champions League again really excited me. I made the move to Sweden to play there.
And you played in that game against Manchester City as well. There's some great pictures of you online. That must have been nice to be playing against. I mean, that was a Man City team that had really taken a hold of women's football at that stage. It must be a proud moment for you as an Englishwoman playing against Man City.
Yeah. No, it was. It was a crazy couple of weeks. I remember landing in Sweden and within 2 days flying to Manchester. I didn't really know the team. We were really unlucky. We only we lost 2-0 away, and then I think it was 4-3 at home. So they obviously knocked us out. They had some great players, but I had a really, really great 4 months at Sweden. You know, made some great friends there, got to play Champions League again, scored goals, had fun. And for me, again, it was just another learning experience and something that definitely improved my career.
So you spent that time in Linköping in Sweden, and one of your main constants was Melbourne. I mean, you've spoken about your love of Australia and love of Melbourne, and I am absolutely sure that you and Becky will end up retiring to Australia and going back to Melbourne. But that was your constant Melbourne, and you were effectively contracted with Melbourne. You had another loan in Europe with Vålerenga, so that's another new experience. Obviously, it's Nordic, it's Scandinavia, but, you know, not all these places are exactly the same. I mean, how is it embedding yourself in these different cultures and these different places?
I think with playing in Australia and with Australia being the league that I loved, it was very hard to find teams that worked with the Australian league. So pretty much the options you had was going to America, which for me obviously ended. So I had 2 options, pretty much Sweden or Norway, which would fit in with the Australian league. Vålerenga came knocking. They're a mid-table team at the time. I'm going to be completely honest again. It wasn't something that I was super excited about. I really didn't think that it was the kind of step that I wanted to make in my career. However, I knew that my happy place was Australia. How could I play there? Playing obviously in Norway. So the way that Vålerenga made me feel, how much they fought to get me to the club. Financially, it was very strong as well, which was nice because it made me feel as if they really wanted me. I absolutely loved my 8-9 months in Norway, and they credit to Vålerenga as well. They actually let me leave 4 or 5 games before the season finished to go back to Australia so that I didn't miss any games in Australia. And they were such good people. And we had a really successful season. We ended up finishing 2nd in the league. So they made Champions League for the first time ever in history. They brought me to Vålerenga to help the club be successful. Even though I only had 7 or 8 months there, I felt as if I had a real impact at the club, and I helped them go on to bigger and better things. And it was lovely because last year they actually won the league and they won the cup, they won the double. So it's just beautiful to see that within 2 years of, you know, the club really investing in the women's team, they've gone on to now play in Champions League and win the league and win the cup. So it's really nice. And I've still got a lot of friends there that I talk to.
Well, you talk about making impact at these 2 Nordic clubs. I mean, you can't blow your own trumpet, so I'll do it for you. You scored 10 goals in 11 games at Linköping, 11 goals in 18 games for Vålerenga. So you certainly left your mark. But one thing that comes across in both of those moves is the temporary nature of it. I'm presuming that Becky came with you on those 2 points, but you can't settle in those situations. And you mentioned your age earlier. You're 32 now. I would imagine you've got at least 5 years left in your playing career, but you are coming towards the back end of it. So I guess it made sense for a permanent move back to Europe. And I think a lot of people might have been quite surprised it wasn't a move back to England, but it was the Rossinieri, which I think is a correct pronunciation for AC Milan. Thank you very much. An exciting opportunity to play for one of the biggest teams in Italian football. So, I mean, how did AC Milan come about, and how have you found your first season?
When I left Australia, it was the hardest decision of my playing career. One, because the club, I've never played for a club so special. It was my family, the people there are my family. I was captain of the club. We won the league there. Like I said to you about the country itself and the city itself, everything, every year I went back there, it just felt like home. You'd step off the plane and you just felt just so relaxed and so excited for the next 4 months. So I got to a point in my playing career where I was 32. I could see that players were looking to go to Europe. A lot of the big superstars that were playing in Australia, the likes of your Sam Kerrs, were getting tempted by moves to Europe. And I just thought in the back of my mind, things are changing. Next year in the W League, I don't think the money, I don't think the players are going to be here. Do I want to be coming back to Australia and being really the only international playing in a league with a load of 17, 18-year-old kids? Is that really where I'm at in my career? And the answer for me was no. So I thought, right, okay, maybe now it's time to head home, to go back to Europe, maybe step away from Australia and doing the kind of back-to-back league, Sweden, Norway, and just kind of staying put at one club. For my body as well, maybe it would have been a positive thing, because for the last 6-7 years, I haven't had an off season. It's been pretty much played, moved to another club, played, maybe had a week, 5 days off in between. So for a 32-year-old, maybe it was time to think about, going back to Europe. So I sat down with Becky and we spoke to my agent. I also understand that I'm at that age where some clubs will look at me and think, she's a goal scorer, she's in good form still, regardless of what my age is, let's have her. A lot of other clubs maybe are looking at bringing the youth through. You've got to respect that. So I know that I'm at that age where I'm not going to have every single club jumping at me. But then I also know that it's hard to get a goal scorer. And I know I score goals. So they're rare. So I had a couple of good offers in England. I was talking to a couple of clubs in England. And then all of a sudden, AC Milan kind of came into the picture, and I kind of hadn't really thought of the Italian league. From what I'd heard, it was still semi-professional. I'd heard of Juventus and the women's team. They had won the last 3 or 4 seasons and were playing Champions League. But apart from that, Fiorentina were meant to be kind of the next best team. But I saw on the table that AC Milan had finished joint second with Fiorentina, but had just missed out on Champions League because of goal difference. So this excited me more, because I thought, well, look, it must be a team that's up there competing. They need a goal scorer, which is what I can give. I spoke to Maurizio Gans, who obviously played at AC Milan, played for Inter Milan, played for Italy. That really excited me, to be able to play for someone that has played at the top of the men's game. And the thought of living in Milan, that excited me as well. It was nerve-wracking because I knew that the language barrier would be a big challenge. However, like we spoke about earlier with my Everton move, I've never been the type of player to go for the easy option. And I just kind of felt as if it was something exciting. The club have only been running for 3 years. They've never won anything. And I want to be that player that comes here and makes history with the club. We're in a great position right now. We're in second place, 3 points behind Juventus. Really strong position to make Champions League and potentially win the league here. And I would love nothing more than to have had that kind of impact here at Milan. Is it easy? No. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it is easy. It's the most challenging football career and move I've ever done yet, because of the language barrier. You can't just talk to people and have conversations with people like I'm used to. I'm really fortunate that there are a lot of foreign players here. So you do have those English speaking players, but you want to build relationships with people, not just the foreign players. I want to have a relationship with my manager where I can openly talk to him. And when he can't speak English and I can't speak Italian, it is frustrating. With the pandemic as well, it makes it even harder, because you can't explore Italy. You can't travel and see all the beautiful places that Italy and Milan has to offer. So it has been a really, really tough 6 months, but I'm looking at it with that mindset of, I'm going to conquer it. I'm going to come out of it positive. And who in their career can say that they've played for AC Milan, whether it's ups and downs, like in everything in football. When I do eventually leave here, I'm going to be proud of what I've achieved, I hope.
There's obviously a group of foreign players where the common language will be English. And we spoke to Conor Randall, the former Liverpool player. He spent what was it? He called it a mad move to Arda Kadzali in Bulgaria. And he did find, not for any fault of anyone else's, because they were all trying to learn a little bit of Bulgarian, but there was a natural gravitation between him. There was a Belgian lad, a French lad, and they would be the foreign lads, and they'd speak common English with each other. I guess there is a temptation, and I guess that does happen, because naturally the Italian girls don't need to learn English, but you girls will all speak English with each other. Yeah,
I think it's true. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's not the case. I think we're really fortunate here at Milan that the majority of the Italian girls can speak English. Not great English, but you can have conversations. And I think that's really good. And I think that I'm the type of player that when things are going bad, you can, like you said, quite easily just go into your comfort zone of hanging out with the people that you know you can talk with and you know that you feel comfortable with. But for me, I think that's also a dangerous thing, because you do then really start seeing cliques and groups, and it's not going to help them when you're on the pitch. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the foreign players don't hang out more than the Italian players. Of course we do. However, do I make the effort to message the Italian players and say, look, come over, have a cup of tea with me and my wife? They appreciate it because they get to practice their English for an hour. I appreciate it because I can try and string a few Italian words together. And I think it's important, because otherwise you're not going to achieve anything on the pitch if you don't try and make the effort off of it.
Who's got the best Italian, you or Becky?
Okay, it's funny because I've been taking Italian lessons, but she's been doing Duolingo. So I always wind her up and say she knows about animals and food. But I make more of an effort with regards to, if we go to the coffee shop downstairs, I'll try and, string a few words together, whereas Becky's a little bit more shy, and she's the type of person that, like I am, when you're not good at something, she hates being a beginner at anything. And it is embarrassing. When I go training sometimes, I get embarrassed to try and speak Italian because I'm scared that I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm saying it wrong, will they laugh at me? There's a couple of girls on the team that are brilliant. Julia Simic, she's German, but she can speak English, and she'll just have a go. Half the time she's saying the wrong stuff and she's pronouncing it wrong, but she'll say it with such a lightheartedness that the Italian, they can't help but love her and appreciate that she's at least trying. And I wish I was a little bit more like that, but my ego sometimes gets the better of me, and I just tend to stick to, speaking English, which maybe I shouldn't.
I think it's a really English thing that we do, because I'm learning Spanish at the minute, and I feel really self-conscious that the way I'm pronouncing Spanish words, I'm like, do I sound a bit silly here?
Yeah.
And it is, I think because English is such a common language, other countries, it's quite common to learn English in their schooling system. And for us, it's almost been a case, I know it's changing now, but we're English, like people speak English and we'll get by. But it's something that I wish I'd done in my younger years, if I'm honest.
I've just written something down, more than a footballer. Tash, you are someone that has football running through your blood. I mean, almost literally, with your family involvement and everything else. And I think, more than most people, football defines you. But your experiences mean that you have become so much more than a footballer. And I listened to you talking about those struggles and throwing yourself in, and also showing that vulnerability by saying, I've struggled with those things. I think that is so important. And the messages that we work on with young footballers are really, really important to get across. You haven't become rich from football, because if you were 20 years younger, then you might have ended up becoming rich from football. So the women's game's going, which is amazing, fantastic. But you have become rich in life experiences, I think. And I mean, how important is that to you? Fraser, I always get your phrase wrong. Is it memories not money, or moments not money? But
memories over money. Yeah, I think for me, I've retired from the game now, and the thing that I remember most are experiences that you can't buy, which are winning things, which are, that time that I said I spent in non-league, I played for the England C team and got to travel to 6 or 7 European countries. And they're the things that I look back on. I was on £300 a week, but I got to experience all these different things that, what would an extra few £100 in my bank look like?
I want to ask a little bit about the future. You're 32. You've probably got at least 4 or 5 years left playing, if not more. I mean, you're supremely fit. Your wife Becky played until she was 41.
Yeah, pressure.
So there's a target for you. I mentioned you played 14 times for your country, England. There's a lot of people in the women's game, we know that we've done our research, that feel as though there should be a lot more than 14. Have you still got aspirations to play for your country?
100%. I feel, and I say it a lot, but I feel in the best form of my life. I'm still fit. I was looking at the GPS results from the game the other day, and I ran the most in the team here at Milan, and I'm the second oldest player in the team. So, I think the older you get, your body better. And I think with the facilities and the recovery and the kind of staff and the medical care that are available nowadays, you can play for a lot older. And you look at the likes of Zlatan and what he's doing here at AC Milan at his age, and Ronaldo, and you like of Farrah Williams, still playing at the top level back home in England. So I'm 32. So for me, I feel I'm still very young in comparison to a lot of these players. And I think with the likes of Becky and what she achieved playing at Liverpool, winning the league at 41 is only for me something to aspire to be able to do. And I think as long as I'm enjoying my football, I've never gone a day where I haven't enjoyed my football and wanted to kick a ball. But as long as I'm playing well, playing at the top level, performing, then I don't see why I can't play for another, God knows how many years. I feel great. And like I said, I'm scoring goals. I'm doing what I do best. And yeah, playing for my country again, I still feel like I can offer England a lot. Of course, I still want to play for England. If I got the phone call now, 100% I'd be on the next plane. I want to be scoring goals, playing for the top team. That's why I came to AC Milan. That's why I came back to Europe, is to be in the back of their mind, hopefully. And then who knows?
There you go. A New England manager on her way. And there's a video to plonk on her desk for her first day in the job. Absolutely. When you left England, the women's game had a real spike. It was starting to build up some momentum. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would imagine there'll be a time when you and Becky want to come home to England. Yeah. When you left, there weren't clubs like Tottenham Hotspur, Aston Villa, Manchester United spending the money and investing in the women's game. It's an exciting time for you to consider a move back to England. I'm presuming that will, when your time at AC Milan is up, whenever that is, I presume that a move to England will be on the radar.
Yeah, of course, I'd love to come home. I miss my family. My sister's just had a baby. My nan and granddad are getting older. I miss playing in front of my dad week in, week out and having his support. Becky, her home is Liverpool. Our house is there. God, I can't remember living in our actual house for more than 2 weeks in the last 6-7 years of our life. So definitely a move back home would be lovely. It'd be a lovely way to kind of finish off my career. And especially with, the way the world is at the minute, with COVID, with the Brexit situation, it's probably becoming more and more of like a realistic thing now, where it's gonna be a case. And I think it would be a lovely way to kind of see my career out. It's exciting, like you said. I watch the English League, I watch all the teams. I have a lot of friends that still play in England, so I really like to stay tuned and just kind of see what the level's looking like and the standards.
Last thing we wanted to ask you, Tash, is we've discussed that your legs are still going to keep going for quite some time.
Yes.
But eventually they'll give up. Becky's gave up eventually.
Yeah.
What's life after playing for you?
I would love to stay involved in the game, like I'm sure you both know. I'm doing my A licence coaching badge. I've actually been doing that for the last 4 or 5 years. But just with the playing side of things, I haven't really been able to step away and commit to coaching full time, which hasn't allowed me then to complete my A licence. But it's definitely something that I have aspirations of completing before I finish playing, and then getting involved in the coaching side, whether that's at an academy level or coaching senior team. But I also have a real hunger and passion for the media side. I did a bit of work for Fox Sports when I was playing in Australia, the co-coms during the game, a lot of studio work as well. And I just loved it. It's something that, I love to talk. I'm not shy on camera. For me, it's the perfect job. You get to watch football and you get to talk about it.
In relation to that, how does it make you feel when you read stories about the treatment of Karen Carney by Leeds United fans, and Alex Scott, not only judged for her gender but also her ethnicity as well? Does it make you worried? Does it make you worried as a female footballer who will be a female ex-footballer? Does it make you worried as a gay woman?
It's sad, because I do feel like you go into this and you feel a lot more pressure to perform, because you know that there's going to be a lot more critics, people trying to, for you to slip up at any point so that they can kind of almost like say, told you so. But I also think credit to the girls. If this is something that they love to do, don't be scared to go and do it. And I think whether that's coaching, whether that's in the media, I just think it's something that if you love something that much and you're passionate enough to do it, then these people that hate on you on social media, for me, I don't have time for that. As long as I'm giving 100%, whether that's good enough for them behind their keyboards, like really for me, I hate that saying haters are going to hate, but if you're talking about me, then it really does say a lot about your life. And you're obviously very unhappy in your life to really trying to be bringing me down. I know that as a striker, it's so funny. I go a couple of games without scoring a goal and it's like question marks and, you know, people are getting nervous and, you know, people aren't talking to you as much and you're not kind of like the Queen of Milan that they call me here and I'm not the bomber. Then I go and score 2 goals and I get player of the match. And now all of a sudden I'm, you know, getting in team of the week and I'm all of a sudden the queen again and I'm the bomber. And it's such a naive world. But I think it's one that when you get into the industry, you know that's the way it is. And you have to be so mentally strong because it's so up and down all the time.
In relation to social media, we talk to young players about not getting carried away with the flame emojis that they get in their early career because all the negativity will come. It's it's difficult to do that though, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And you know, I think it's important that we accept that it does hurt when you are criticised online. But one other question I have for you is not only are you capable of being criticised online as an individual, as a player, your entire reason for being, i.e. being a women's footballer, gets criticised regularly. How much does it hurt when you see, a woman misses a sit, so a League Two player misses a sitter, people will laugh at him. A women's footballer misses a sitter, people will start all the stupid jokes about equal pay, etc., etc. How much does that hurt for someone who, we've just heard your story and heard how hard you've worked all your bloody life to have your entire reason for being criticised by someone behind a keyboard?
I'm very much a big believer in, I just pity them. And I do. Like, I think when you get into the football world and into the sporting world, it's so important, like I said earlier, to have that circle, because if you don't have that support base, then you can easily get affected by these things. And look, I've got different techniques of how I deal with it. You know, like I said, being out in Milan right now has been the most challenging time of my career, and some really challenging times. And I write a lot of things down, and for me, that's a head. When I can't speak and they don't understand me, and I'm really getting frustrated in that part of the side of it, I've got my journal and I just write down every emotion that I'm feeling to just try and let it get out, because it's not helping me with them when I'm on the pitch if I feel like I've got this big kind of bag on my back. But I think what these people need to realize is that we are always trying our best. Like, this is our life. Like, the amount we've sacrificed and we've given up to be here, sitting in an apartment in Italy with no one, away from my friends, away from my family, missing my niece's first birthday, you know, potentially like, will it be the last time I ever see my nan and granddad? You know, you've got all those thoughts in the back of your head because of COVID and the worry of them being older. You know, there's so much stuff that goes on. What they need to realize is that we're doing this because, like, we love it. I think, yes, it hurts when people question you. And when you come to a new country, you want to prove how good you are, because people don't know. You've come somewhere new, they don't know you. They don't know your goal scoring record. They don't know the type of player you are. Like back home, they do. So you do come here with this added pressure. And I want to show everyone how good I am. And when I don't feel like I am showing them my potential, it does hurt. However, I always have that mindset of, do you know what? I always give my best. I'm the first to training. I'm the last off the training pitch. I practice all the time. I am a big believer in karma. Like, if you put in, you will eventually get back out. And that's why I believe I scored 2 goals the other day, because I know I train hard to get to where I am. And so for me, I ignore the haters. They can say what they want about me, because my career already, I'm very fortunate that I can look back at my career and say, do you know what? Look at my goals. I don't need to prove anything to you. I've scored goals wherever I've gone. You know, you don't need to question me as a goal scorer, because I know I score goals. Am I a good football player? Yes. And a lot of people get embarrassed to say that. And I think that's in the women's game and in the, maybe not as much in the men's game, but you don't want to come across cocky or arrogant. But, well, do you know what? I bloody work hard to get to where I am. So yes, I believe I am one of the best strikers in the world. And there's no harm in saying that, because I know how hard I work and I know the sacrifices and the commitment I make.
I think where it becomes a problem online is you say everyone's entitled to their opinion, but so many people give opinion when they haven't earned it. And what I mean by that is they don't know the context, they don't know your story. And I hope this podcast helps people to understand the story of the hard work, not just you, but so many of the girls in the women's game. And they feel entitled to offer an opinion without that context. I think that's really, really important. Tash, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. We were really keen to feature someone from the women's game, because I think they are stories that are increasingly being told but still not being told enough. We genuinely think you're an inspiration. The journeys that you've had across the world are absolutely massive. As we said earlier on, it's a shame that Brexit might limit some of those opportunities for both men and women in football, but just wanted to say thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Football Journeys, and thank you to all those who supported us. Do come and find us on social media at JourneysPod on both Twitter and Instagram, where we'll be sharing more content. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us on footballjourneys@b5consultancy.com or visit our webpage, b5consultancy.com/footballjourneys. Please do like and subscribe. If you feel we deserve a 5-star rating, then please give us one. The more successful this podcast is, the better chance we have of producing more episodes and further series.